Hey guys, what's up? So I was gonna make this video a long time ago, especially when I started getting involved more heavily with Twitch, and started, gaming a little bit more and showing a little bit of my, the gameplay that I use when I'm, just online. So today my video is basically gonna be about my first experiences on the web. And when I started to get involved with games, when I started getting involved with modding and with graphics design, web hosting, all that sort of stuff. So I was very much anti-technology back in the late 20th century. Let's call it 1995 through 99, almost up to 2000. I never actually owned a computer until I was probably 22, 23 years old. It was actually a mutually owned computer. My wife and my girlfriend at the time, we got a little Gateway P4 computer. Got really exposed to the internet, man. I mean, right away it was just kind of off and running. I fiddled around with different websites, different video games, and then I actually found a community of a modding add-on community for the NHL gaming series by EA Sports. That was probably the catalyst for when I really got involved with graphics, really got involved with, modding games, creating add-ons, that sort of thing. It took me about 2 or 3 years to just, kind of really find a way to get incorporated with that, because I had no technological background. I don't have any background in graphics design prior to that. But I really, for starters, I was a huge hockey fan, so that was easy. And it was fascinating that you could actually take an existing game and modify it to fit however you wanted to play it. So, I used to download jersey add-ons, roster updates. Back in those days, you were even able to change the graphics of the ice design and the arena design in the gameplay, which is amazing. It was awesome. Got involved with that, and then kind of got a little more involved with the community. At first I was just downloading the stuff, putting into my game, and then decided, well, I'm going to get involved with the community a little bit. Well, I was one of the original trolls, one of the original web trolls for this community. NHLDepot.com, I think that it was DMDhockey.com, Thunderpuck.com. This was a really big, vibrant community back in those days, and I was kind of one of the original trolls, and it might have been because I was actually kind of shunned because I wasn't very good at making mods. I mean, I opened up, Paint Shop or whatever the software of the day we would use, and I would paint things on the jersey, or I would use the contrast bar slider thing to change the color. I'd slap on a non-transparent logo. I was awful. I was awful at graphics design. I never really got that much better either. It's just I changed my focus from actually modding the game to providing the environment online to exchange add-on ideas and modding with other people online. So I started a community called the Hockey Sector back in, I think, 2002, maybe even 2001. I remember actually because it was during the NHL 2001 and NHL 2002, those back-to-back years when those games were being played online, and other people were using the mods for those games on their PC versions of the game. So I ended up deciding, hey, I wanted to get involved with the actual administering of a website, providing the space, creating community. I didn't really feel that the community that was being offered at that time was very inclusive to new people. I mean, either you had been around 2 or 3, 4 years, or when the web first came on, and if you weren't actually involved prior to that, you didn't really have a place in that community. So I decided to form a community of noobs. It's pretty much a community of noobs. We called it the Hockey Sector. We fashioned ourselves very much like the Outsiders, or kind of like the NHL Gaming's answer to the NWO from the old WCW wrestling days. I mean, it was amazing. It was fun. Built it up really well, man. I mean, we had a download section, we had a forum section. I very much fashioned and modeled my websites pretty much identically, except for the lack of really nice high-end graphics. I modeled my websites pretty much identically to the way the other communities were shaped at the time, because I didn't really want to change a lot of stuff. I wasn't technologically capable of changing other stuff, but I also wanted everybody who was going to come over to my website feel comfortable and be like, oh yeah, okay, so that's what we do here and that's how we do there. So that was, I kind of, in a way, I stole some of the ideas. And then, a couple years into it, more or less from NHL 2002 to NHL 2003, I founded and started a website called the Central Fantasy Hockey Association. Now, basically what I did at this time, and I really wish that Twitch had existed at this time because it would have been amazing. Basically what I did was, it was a modding / add-on community. So we would change the rosters, we would change the jerseys, we would add different logos, and we created our own fantasy league called the Central Fantasy Hockey Association. We would have full-on drafts. We would put ourselves as created players in the game. We would have, trades. We would have free agent signings. And what the great part about it was it was fantasy hockey, but it was more geared toward the actual individual who was playing the game. So, a lot of people, they would have, they would be a GM of their own team, but they'd also be a player on their own team. And so the only people who couldn't actually be traded were obviously the owners / GMs of these fantasy teams. So we did that for, pretty solid for about a year. We ran seasons probably once every 2 or 3 months. And I would sit there and actually install all the add-ons that all of the GMs, all the people who owned a franchise in that league, they would send me all of the add-ons and everything. I would install it into the game, and I would sit there and watch all the games. Simulated through the NHL 2002 or NHL 2003. I would sit there, simulate the games. I would take, screenshots of goals, or I would add captions, after I would watch the entire game, and then I would write recaps. It was really pretty cool. And then there were possibilities back then where you could actually extract stats and then convert them into HTML files for online use. And so it was really cool. There was an entire website dedicated to this thing. We made special video montages once the playoffs were over, and then the people who hadn't got to watch the game would actually see the logo of the winning team show up on their through the movie that I would use. I would make it in like a Flash creating movie creator. So over the course of time, it became almost like a job. I was, at that time, I wasn't doing a lot. I was still pretty young, so I was, looking at different options of, going back to school or staying in school or whatever. And, so I had to cut it loose. I had to let it go. And around that time, is when I transitioned from the hockey websites to the Star Wars websites. So I played a game. Many of you are probably very familiar with it. It is called Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. And in the early 2000s, this game won, just hundreds of accolades and awards for, the great storytelling, the graphics design of that day. It was originally on the, I believe it came out on PC and the very original Xbox. And this game was just, it was a, to be quite honest with you, and not to make it sound melodramatic, because yes, I am a Star Wars fan, but this game actually changed my life and in a lot of ways saved my life. I won't really go into that part in this video, but basically this game was just so immersive and so impressive. And then on top of that, you understand that, wow, I'm a Star Wars fan and I've never seen anything like this. I mean, in the Star Wars universe, when you would be, watching video games or watching movies, it was always Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Yoda, Chewbacca. But in this instance, it was totally different characters. The plot line takes place, I think, 3,000 or 4,000 years before the original trilogy of Star Wars. And it left this big, huge gap where Darth Vader existed here, but then these whole other set of characters existed down here. And there was a lot of room in between to fill in gaps. So, read all the books of the times that took place in between that. There was Knights of the Old Republic, the original. There was Knights of the Old Republic 2. And then what really was the big push into that community was waiting for Knights of the Old Republic 3 to come out. Well, to make a long story short, Knights of the Old Republic 3 never materialized. Later on, they did create an MMO based on Knights of the Old Republic, which is Star Wars The Old Republic, which is still online today, still a great game. I need to make another video about that because I really want to get involved in that again someday, playing that game. But to go back a couple more years talking about the Star Wars game, I got really heavily involved with that community as well, but in a much different way. We didn't play video games necessarily. I mean, we all played Knights of the Old Republic, we all played Knights of the Old Republic 2, but this community was more formed around sharing ideas and stories about what happened because we were waiting for Knights of the Old Republic 3 to come out. So we, as it was almost like a writers guild, not necessarily, but we formed this community with a message board online. It originally started on the LucasArts forum, and what we did was we would continue stories. So one person would write, a couple, 3 paragraphs about a story, about a setting, about an opening sequence of events for this story, and then another writer would come along and they would finish parts and fill in gaps for the continuation of that story, and it would go on and on and on and on and on. This community just absolutely boomed. I find myself in a very, I guess what I would call an arrogant way. I feel like I'm the progenitor of a movement when it comes to this, and I call it Star Wars role-playing, or LucasArts style Star Wars role-playing. There are other websites that are very much, you could trace their lineage back to my website. Like I said, I was one of the web's original trolls, and the community pretty much disintegrated a little bit based on some of the actions and things that I said, the actions and things that other people said, which basically kind of made the community fall apart, at least the community that I started. Now, a lot of my users, a lot of the visitors to my website carried that on to other websites, the StarWarsRP.com, which is pretty much the carrier of the legacy of what I started and what other individuals started in that time. I'm not going to take all the credit because a lot of people were there as well. In some regard, maybe not so much now, but back then I really didn't hold them in a lot of high regards because of the way things that were done. It was childish stuff back then. Totally over it now, but I'm just kind of documenting, where that came from. So that community flourished. It's called the StarWarsRP.com. But it was an amazing experience for one reason. One, it's interesting to know that your idea or what you wanted to push forward and enjoy with other people actually stayed around and evolved and grew and became even bigger once you stepped aside, or in this case, once you were swept aside. So, looking back on it, I think it's just absolutely amazing. I think it's absolutely amazing, the community that they created. I'm proud of them in a lot of ways. I'm also kind of very disappointed that I didn't stick around, that I wasn't a little nicer, a little kinder, a little gentler, because I really wish I would have been a part of that community. At the same time, though, they incorporated a lot of amazing writers into that community. A lot of people that, we would put a 3-sentence, 4-sentence opening paragraph, walks into cantina, pulls out lightsaber, begins to kill everybody, just stuff like that. Well, these people, they make whole background stories of the characters that they're writing about, and the different settings and the political landscape of the galaxy at that point in time. And they've done varying different timelines, going from one place to here, going to 1,000 years before the rise of Darth Vader and the Galactic Empire, doing traces back to the original founders of the Force or the Jedi Order. So I mean, I could go on for hours with the impressive, absolutely amazing, skilled, and talented writers who carried on the legacy of a website that I started. So I find that to be absolutely amazing. And then I left that community as well, of course. Fiddled around for a couple of years with other different video games. Never really got involved into another, online community like that. And I really haven't. Even as I believe in 2008 or 2009, when I really became heavily involved in World of Warcraft, I never actually got involved with any of the modding sites. I never got involved with any of the site reviews, or the helper sites, kind of like the WoW heads and the WoW insiders, or the just the, oh my god, Icy Veins. I never got involved in any of those websites in those communities. I really enjoyed the game, however. I never even really used add-ons for that game. I just kind of enjoyed the story, kind of enjoyed, pushing, the story forward for my characters that I would play. And then just recently, I found Twitch. I'm still very heavily into World of Warcraft, but I found Twitch and had a couple of buddies that I've known over the years who have been involved with Twitch, and then I actually worked with a guy who was a YouTuber, and he had a channel on Twitch, and I was like, that might be something that might really be fun and exciting to explore. And then I realized that these people are actually out there streaming from home, and it's their job, or it's a secondary source of income. So that was something that I kind of wanted to pursue, but I was more fascinated with just the way that the graphics work, the way that the setup of the computers work. I mean, a lot of things have gone into me wanting to try to stream on Twitch. But at the same time, a lot of the things that I've learned, I didn't know before. Like I've taken whole computers apart and reassembled them, and built my own 2 custom PCs from scratch, with the motherboards and the graphics cards, and the seating the CPUs and the RAM, and just all these things, getting new monitors, and it's just been an amazing ride. It's been absolutely amazing fun, and it's kind of almost like a revitalization of what brought me to the internet to begin with, and what brought me and got me really hooked on the sense of community, but also just pushing yourselves intellectually and skillfully, pushing yourself forward and learning new things. So I was able to, assemble these computers, and I downloaded this software. Originally, I started using XSplit for streaming on Twitch. I'm not going to bash XSplit, because I think that they're trying, they're amazing, their service is awesome. They got a lot of helpful customer service aspects of their community. However, I think it bogs down a computer, a processor, especially an AMD processor, because I like AMD stuff. There are some things that I've evolved on, some things that I'm just absolutely set on, and AMD products I actually believe are, I wouldn't say necessarily superior to Intel, but I like them. Anyway, to go back to where I was coming from, I didn't really get too heavily involved in the community with Twitch at first, but then I was really, like I said, pushing that envelope forward and finding ways to challenge yourself is really all I was looking for. And then I realized that people actually make money doing this. And it's, it would be great. I think now at this point, versus when Twitch first started, you just kind of get lost in the crowd. Unless you have some kind of niche or some kind of ability to pull people in and watch you. For the most part, I think it's very difficult to make any inroads into that community now and be successful at it. However, I don't think that should stop anybody, and it definitely hasn't stopped me. I'm every day finding something new, finding different ways to stream and to increase the quality, and that's where I was going with the whole XSplit point, was that the software was kind of expensive. It was, you pay for it, but then I found OBS, installed a couple of their add-ons, a couple of their plugins, and it works great for me. I've messed around with the settings a little bit, and I think I'm pretty close to being exactly where I want to be as a streamer. And then just over the last week or so, I actually started realizing, well, I would sit there and stream, and I would have 1, maybe 2, possibly 3 viewers. That was it. No posting in my chat channel, and I'm a sociable guy. I have a lot to offer. I'm kind of one of those people who has a very dry sense of humor, but I like to laugh. I like to enjoy what I'm doing, especially when I'm playing video games, listening to music and whatnot, and just things like that. But I wanted to have a little more interaction with people who would actually potentially watch my stream. So I read some articles, and I did a lot of different other things, and realized that I needed to get a Twitter account, which I've done. I had a personal Facebook page for many years, but I decided to create another page and rebrand myself versus just, you know, some kind of gamer tag or anything else like that. And in another video, I'll explain to you guys how I ran a web hosting service after I had gotten involved in the modding community with NHL. I actually founded a web hosting service which kind of operates still to this day. And I'll probably go a little more in depth into that in another video, but the apex of where I started with NitroSpire, which is this new tag that I'm using, this new sort of brand, where I'm just basically, it's me streaming video games and, you know, just kind of trying to enjoy myself and incorporate some more people into that, which is really what my goal is. So that's pretty much it. That is the story in a nutshell of where I came from, where my gaming experience comes from. I'm going to cut it a little short because, to be honest with you, I gotta run. I have to go to the bathroom. I've been sitting here for about 20 minutes or so, maybe even longer, just making this video. Pretty excited about the future, no matter what happens. But I just wanted to document some of the finer points of where I come from and what I have to offer. And I appreciate you guys if you've taken the time to listen and to watch. And have a good one.